introduction into a novel. As I read the letters, I asked myself, is it because she was, like me, a woman, that Princess Pakize was able to describe these events much more vividly and meticulously than the average historian or foreign consul could? We must not forget that during the outbreak of plague, the author of these letters rarely left the guest house in the State Hall, and only found out what was happening in the city through her doctor husband's tales. Princess Pakize did not just describe this world of male politicians, bureaucrats, and doctors in her letters. She also managed to identify with these men. I, too, have attempted to bring that world to life in my novel Come History. But it is very difficult indeed to be as receptive, bright, and hungry for life as Princess Pakize was. Of course, another reason why I have been so moved by these extraordinary letters, which will span at least 600 pages when they are published, is that I myself am a daughter of Mingheria. As a little girl, I would come across Princess Pakize in school books, newspaper columns, and most of all in the pages of national children's weeklies, Island Lessons, Learning History, which published comic strips and tales of historic figures. I had always felt a particular affinity toward her. Just as other people saw the island of Mingheria as a mythical fairy tale land, Princess Pakize was to me a fairy tale heroine. It was a magical experience to find the fairy tale princess's day-to-day troubles, her true emotions, and most important, her striking personality and her integrity enshrined in the letters that had suddenly come into my possession. Eventually, as the patient reader will discover by the end of this book, I met her in person too. I was able to verify the authenticity of the world described in Princess Pakize's letters by consulting archives in Istanbul, Mingheria, England and France, and by reviewing historical documents and memoirs from the era. But there were moments as I wrote my historical novel when I could not help but identify with Princess Pakize and feel as if I were writing my own personal story. The art of the novel is based on the craft of telling our own stories as if they belong to others, and of telling other people's stories as if they were our own. So whenever I began to feel like a sultan's daughter, like a princess, I knew deep down that I was doing precisely what a novelist should do. The harder part was empathizing with all the men in position of power, the pashas and doctors who were in charge of quarantine measures and oversaw the battle against the plague. If a novel is to reach in spirit and form beyond the scope of an individual story and resemble instead a kind of history that embraces everybody's lives, it is best for it to be narrated from many different points of view. On the other hand, I agree with that most female of all male novelists, the great Henry James, who believed that for a novel to be truly convincing, every detail and every event must be gathered around the perspective of a single character. But because I have written a history book at the same time, I have often deviated from and indeed broken the rule of the single point of view. I have interrupted emotional scenes to provide the reader with facts and figures and the histories of government institutions. Right after describing a character's innermost feelings, I have swiftly and boldly moved on to a completely different character's thoughts, even when the first character couldn't possibly have known what they might be. Although I firmly believe that the dethroned Sultan Abdulaziz was assassinated, I have also noted how some have argued that he committed suicide. In other words, I have tried to look at the dazzling realm Princess Pakize described in her letters through the eyes of its other witnesses too, and thus make my book closer to a history. Of the questions I have been asked so frequently over the years, such as how these letters came into my possession, how seriously I take the murder mystery therein, and why did I not publish the letters first, I will only address here the second of the above. This idea for a novel found support among fellow academics to whom I spoke of the murders described in the letters, and of Sultan Abdul Hamid II's literary